Considered by many to be the father of modern photojournalism, Henri Cartier-Bresson is one of the most influential and pioneering photographers of the 20th century. A master of candid photography, his poetic and lyrical pictures helped establish photojournalism as an art form. His book, The Decisive Moment, the idea of a split second in time when all the elements of a scene come together in perfect harmony, has been called the most important photographic book of the last century. As a founding member of Magnum, the most prestigious photo agency in the world, his contributions to the art form are immeasurable. But Cartier-Bresson was not only a skilled photographer, he was also a free spirit, a rebel and a humanist who believed that one must feel connected to what shows in the viewfinder in order to give meaning to the world. In 1954, he was the first photographer to have a solo exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, cementing his status as one of the most important photographers of his generation. In the aftermath of the moral crisis left by World War I, an artistic and literary movement emerged in Europe called Surrealism. It was characterized by the exploration of the unconscious mind, dreams, and the irrational aspects of human experience. Artists such as Salvador Dali and Max Ernst used surrealist techniques to create works that challenged the viewer's perception of reality and questioned the nature of the world around us. Born near Paris in France in 1908, Henri Cartier-Bresson grew up in a wealthy family. His formative years were nurtured with an interest in the arts, and his early career was marked by deep influences of the Surrealist movement. He went on to be trained under Cubist painter André Lorde, whose teachings on perspective had a significant influence on the early stage of the young photographer's work. He also visited lectures on literature and painting at the prestigious University of Cambridge in England. While Cartier-Bresson's body of work is often considered as a whole, it is important to note that his early photographs were taken during a time and cultural climate that had very different aspirations and pressures compared to those that emerged after the war. As a result, these photographs do not necessarily conform to the ideas of photojournalism. The absence of narrative or explanatory detail shift their weight away from the political to the personal. These early works are stylistically different from his later work after the war as well. Following Cartier-Bresson's work chronologically, one can see a growing concern with human beings, their stories, and the social and political implications they embody. The political crisis in Europe in the 1930s, which heavily impacted Cartier-Bresson's generation, provided the backdrop that shaped the coming-of-age identity of many young people of his time. The first years of wandering and initial experimentation with photography, Cartier-Bresson's work displays his surrealist point of view. Not many pictures survived from a short period of studio surrealism before giving himself up to the surprises of street photography, further eliminating any distinction between art and life. The surrealists approached photography with an appetite for the unconventional. They recognized that everyday photographs, especially when taken out of their usual context, held a wealth of unplanned and unforeseeable meaning. They also rejected traditional norms and values, which they saw as stifling and oppressive. And so Cartier-Bresson's artistic concepts might have been influenced by his avant-garde circles, but his actual work prospered in a different realm, that of impoverished neighborhoods, brothels, and narrow alleyways. The well-dressed man sitting in a Parisian café is a rare subject we find in Cartier-Bresson's work, a symbol of the life he himself came from and actively rejected. More frequently, we find a distinct play with shapes, subjects often lifted out of their daily experience or hemmed in by geometric forms. the resulting effect resemblant of a collage, a technique that many surrealist artists used. Right from the outset, geometry was a critical cornerstone of Bresson's photographic expression. Within the realm of surrealist photography, the balance and structure of shapes played a pivotal role, challenging perception and normality through the power of form. For Cartier-Bresson, form was always his first priority and light secondary. Despite his early work displaying great understanding of form, it was more direct and more static. It wasn't until he encountered the captivating photograph Three Boys at Lake Tanganyika by Martin Munkoshti that his approach to photography would experience a profound transformation. The capture and flow of motion in this photograph left a lasting impression on the young photographer that would alter his approach to movement forever. From that point on, Henri Cartier-Bresson started taking his photographic pursuits seriously, and in 1931 he acquired his first Leica. Equipped with a 50mm lens, he began to travel across Europe. Leica was founded in 1914 by Ernst Leitz, a German optical engineer who was passionate about photography. In 1925, they introduced the first 35mm camera, the groundbreaking Leica 1, which revolutionized the field of photography. Today, Leica remains known for its precision engineering, durability, and exceptional image quality. Intrigued by the possibilities of the new era of 35mm format, which allowed photographers to capture images quickly and discreetly, Cartier-Bresson began thinking about his famous concept of the decisive moment, the idea of capturing a single moment that conveys the essence of a scene or a situation. One of the most famous examples of Cartier-Bresson's decisive moment is his photograph behind the Gare Saint-Lazare. In this photograph, a man is seen leaping over a puddle, with his reflection perfectly framed by the surrounding water. The dynamic of his movements is further emphasized by the presence of a poster in the rear wall of the frame, which mirrors his animated jump. It's a simple moment, but the contrast of the man's fluid movement and the rigid background masterfully captures the tension and contradictions experienced by a whole continent during a time between two world wars. As the 1930s went on and the Great Depression continued to cast shadows over Europe and the Western world, people started to feel that they lived in a pre-war period rather than a post-war era. During the years leading up to the Second World War, Cartier-Bresson's personal rebellion and the work that came from it underwent a significant transformation. Working as a newspaper photographer in an environment of urgency placed private creative pursuits in a secondary position, and his work started to depart from the spirit of his earlier pictures. Cartier-Bresson served in the French army during World War II and was captured as a prisoner of war by the Germans for 3 years. His time in captivity had a lasting impact and marked a break in his life. His freelance reporting became considerably more attuned to social issues rather than personal ones, fueling his work for many years to come. After the war, Cartier-Bresson would emerge as the photojournalist many remember him as today. At the time, photojournalism was undergoing a massive shift. As people increasingly turned to image-driven publications such as Life and Paris Match to gain insight into global affairs, the demand for photographers surged. With this increase in demand, the business of photography led to complex issues around copyright. In response, Cartier-Bresson, along with Robert Capa, George Roger, and David Seymour, became a founding member of Magnum, an organization that aimed to protect photographers' rights. Magnum emerged as a pioneering agency developing a work model that empowered independent photographers to work without constraints imposed by the press, giving them the freedom to choose their own subjects. Magnum's mission was driven by the belief that photography could be a powerful tool to serve humanity. Documenting stories long-term rather than short-lived news coverage, Cartier-Bresson would spend weeks and months on end in one location. Whether it was the final days of Mahatma Gandhi or the Chinese Revolution in 1949, Cartier-Bresson often found himself at the heart of global events, despite not chasing news stories. Cartier-Bresson achieved worldwide recognition during this time, with major exhibitions and magazines regularly featuring his photography. This propelled him into the ranks of the most prominent European photographers of his era. The importance of geometry continued to run throughout his work, with which he often incorporated strong diagonals and contrasting shapes in his images, creating a sense of movement and tension. But for Cartier-Bresson, a remarkable photograph was more than just geometry and structure. It also needed to encapsulate an intangible element that was difficult to articulate, and he deeply felt that nothing worthwhile about photography was teachable. He believed that art at large required a certain sensitivity, an ability to see and feel deeply, and to align one's emotions and intuition with technical skills. For him, the process of taking a photograph was not just a mechanical act, but a kind of collaboration with the world around him, where he would wait and observe until the right moment presented itself. At the same time, Cartier-Bresson had a strong commitment to the integrity of the image itself. He believed that a good photograph should be perfect within the frame, without any need for cropping or manipulation. Until the very end, his face would light up when seeing something that satisfied his eye. Another key element of Cartier-Bresson's photography was his use of black and white film. He believed that black and white photography was the purest form of the medium, allowing the photographer to focus on form, light, and composition, rather than being distracted by the colors in the scene. Cartier-Bresson's photography was deeply influenced by his travels and his experiences of the world. He was a lifelong traveler and adventurer, and his photographs captured the essence of many different cultures and societies. From the streets of Paris to the villages of India, his images documented the beauty and diversity of the human experience. Initially labeling himself as a surrealist photographer and later as a photojournalist, Cartier-Bresson ultimately rejected such classifications and instead believed that photography served as a direct connection to life, accessible to anyone with enough sensitivity to see its beauty. Throughout his career, Cartier-Bresson received numerous awards for his photographic body of work. He continued to work and travel until his death in 2004, leaving behind a significant and far-reaching legacy of modern photojournalism as a respected form of artistic expression.